Chair. We've talked a lot today about the dire threat to democracy posed by the spread of white supremacy and related extremism, but I'd like to discuss the means to combat radicalization and private unregulated militias. First off, nearly every state has a statute on the books prohibiting ad hoc militias from organizing and operating, but these laws are seldom enforced. Ms. McCord, 2 quick yeses or nos. Many militias seem to believe that there's a constitutional right that allows for the violent overthrow of the government to take it back for the people. Does that right exist?
No, it does not.
Does the Second Amendment provide this right?
No, it does not.
That's what I thought. Okay, what more can states be doing to investigate and enforce those anti-militia laws? And are there any states you would point to that have demonstrated strong enforcement? And what can we do on the federal level in Congress?
I would point recently to the elected district attorney of Albuquerque, New Mexico, Bernalillo County, Raul Torres. He brought a civil enforcement action against an unlawful private militia that was operating in Albuquerque, the New Mexico Civil Guard. My organization at Georgetown co-counseled with him in that enforcement action, and we obtained injunctive relief, court-ordered relief, prohibiting that militia and its officers, directors, members, and any successor organizations from continuing to operate as a military unit outside of governmental authority or to usurp the role of law enforcement by assuming the functions of law enforcement. That is a really commendable use of the state laws in New Mexico, and that's something that could be replicated elsewhere. However, as your question notes, there's, I think, a lack of resources for many state and local law enforcement and prosecutors, and sometimes a lack of political will to take the kind of action that Mr. Torres took. And that is why I have worked with the chairman and his staff on, some proposals for federal anti-paramilitary activity legislation.
Thank you so much. These unregulated militia are major contributors to gun violence, so it's very critical that these laws are enforced. Mrs. Siegel, turning to you, briefly, what does the whole of government approach to combating radicalization and extremism look like, and what funding and grants are needed?
So I recommend that folks look at ADL's Protect Plan, which is a comprehensive set of recommendations, which includes opposing extremists in government service, taking domestic terrorism prevention measures. Specifically, though, it also includes creating an independent clearinghouse for online extremist content. You can imagine it modeled after, in part, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, where essentially people who are identifying extremist activity or threats to violence online have a place to report it that is nonprofit, independent, but funded by the government. I think that would be a good step. And then lastly, I think we need to also identify potentially looking at targeting foreign white supremacist terrorist groups, because we know white supremacy is a global terror threat, and the ability for extremists to translate their ideologies of hate through the internet across the world is something that we're seeing impact communities on the ground here in the United States.
Thank you so much. Ms. Caraballo, I wanted to give you a chance to, it seems like you wanted the opportunity to have a little rebuttal, so I wanted to give you that opportunity.
Thank you, Representative, for the opportunity to provide some context to my speech, or to my tweets. The tweets aren't necessarily representative entirely of my views. Every American has the right to protest peacefully on sidewalks, as the Supreme Court has held, and to protest public officials peacefully. And I wholeheartedly support the peaceful protest of government officials. And I stress the word peaceful. In terms of the word accost, means to confront verbally. And that is entirely what I meant, and that is what I was pointing to. And in terms of the second tweet, I was referring to reports about in the news media that Justice Alito had taken meetings with a family and leaked a Supreme Court decision back in 2014, the Hobby Lobby decision. And those are my personal views, and I hope every American is able to share their personal views on social media and exercise their First Amendment right to free speech. Thank you.
Thank you, and I just want to say thanks for your explanation, but I do agree with my colleagues. We want to be able to do our jobs in a peaceful way and don't want to have things what happened to Nancy Pelosi's husband or any member of Congress or elected official be physically hurt from doing their job. Thank you. I yield back.
And I think that